Just leaving from the house that's right behind me and heading into town looking for breakfast. And the very first thing that happens, something else breaks. I'm starting to believe strongly in the powers of aluminum, because almost everything you buy these days, GoPro accessories, adapters, mounting grips, everything is made out of plastic. And it's all very lightweight and hard plastic, very durable, but it's only durable as long as time doesn't catch up with it. And yeah, everything becomes brittle. So this is my favorite mounting thing, my GoPro Jaws Flex clamp, and it uses a gooseneck and the mounting mechanism, the bracket at the very top. Everything's made out of plastic. Just now it just snapped right off, so this is now garbage, and I need a new one. And of course, down here in Port Dickson, this is not the place to be buying GoPro accessories. Well, I guess you can order everything online and have stuff shipped to you. I guess I have to eventually stop thinking I can go to stores to buy things. It's just not how the world works anymore. That's how I prefer to do things, but no, today is online ordering. So I guess I can just figure out the address of this house. It seems pretty established. A local delivery person would probably be able to figure out the address of that house and deliver things there. So I guess I will be ordering one of these. The thing is, by the way, you can't actually order one of those. I've never seen a GoPro gooseneck, just the gooseneck for sale. You have to buy the whole thing. So that includes the jaws and everything else. So that's why it's so expensive. I'd rather just buy the gooseneck, but I've never been able to, I never found one of those for sale anywhere. So in reality, I'm not very far away from my original home. My original home is just around the corner here. There's this big Buddhist complex here, a temple sort of community center, whatever you want to call it. And where I was staying before is on the other side of this. There's a road here. My house was there, but now my new house is on just over here. So I'm basically just moved over to the other side of this Buddhist complex. And when I was here before, every morning I'd be walking in this direction, passing by this school, and my new home, the route takes me exactly the same way. So heading into town this way and passing. Yeah, last night, the one thing that kept waking me up throughout the night, I didn't put in earplugs because it was so quiet in my neighborhood, but there appeared to be two competing dog packs, maybe. I didn't go outside to see what was going on, but there was a tremendous amount of dog fighting going on during the night. It sounded pretty savage, too. These guys were awake all night long, fighting amongst themselves, fighting other dogs, other dog packs or something. But yeah, there was a lot of barking, growling, screaming, howling. It's no wonder these guys sleep all day. They're up all night living a dog life when we're sound asleep. So to round up my stories, I'm going to go way back in time to when KY and I drove from Port Dickson into Kuala Lumpur. I spent the weekend in Kuala Lumpur, as you may have figured out. And KY and I drove in together. And on our way in, we passed a guy walking down the highway, and I instantly recognized this was some sort of a foreigner on some sort of a around the world expedition. And KY pulled over to the side of the road. I jumped out of the car and went and chatted with the guy for a little bit. His name was Sebastian. He's from Australia, and he has an Instagram page and a YouTube channel called The Indefinite Walk. And I chatted with him at the side of the road, and then later on I tracked down all of his social media, hoping that I'd be able to meet up with him. I thought he'd be staying in Kuala Lumpur for a few days, and I was trying to arrange to meet up with him, have a coffee. I wanted to hear all his stories. So when I got into KL, I went to, Instagram, I guess. How did I do it? Yeah, on Instagram, you can send a direct message, right? So that's what I tried to do. I'm not very good at using Instagram, but I found the area where you can send somebody a direct message. So I wrote to him, morning. So I wrote to him and just said, hey, if you're free, let me know, and maybe we can get together. I offered to come meet him because I had no idea where he was staying. He may not have even come into Kuala Lumpur at all. I didn't know what his plans were, and I figured it would be easier for me to go to him since I know the city. But he didn't reply to that message. And then a little bit later, he posted something to Instagram. It was a long, detailed post talking about being in Malaysia, and his plan, as he wrote, was to, hello, how are you? Was to, oh, here's this construction project. They're done, more or less. Yeah, all the time I've been here in Port Dickson before, they dug up this ditch, and it was quite a mess here. So I guess this is what they were working on. They put in new cement culverts, or whatever you call them, or water drainage. So I guess they've finished, put all the dirt back, and yeah, I don't know if this is going to be cleaned up and they're going to put sod down or anything. Still a bit of a mess, but we'll see. Anyway, yeah, they're all done. So in his comment, he said that he's going to be going back to Australia for a month. And, so I didn't know that. And I left a comment on his Instagram post, again saying, hey, we should get together. But then he replied to my comment and said he's actually on the plane already. So he had plans already, he had a flight booked, I guess, and he basically just walked into Kuala Lumpur and then hopped on a flight to Australia. So there was no chance of getting together with him. And his plan is to stay in Australia for a month, fly back to Malaysia, start walking again. So his mission, his expedition, his goal is essentially to walk around the world, and he wants to walk every meter of it. So he never wants to cheat, never wants to, if he can help it. I mean, there's sometimes you can't walk because borders are closed, or there's a war going on, or there's an ocean in your way. But he basically wants to walk the whole distance. So with his journey, he broke his journey here in Kuala Lumpur, so he wants to fly back to Kuala Lumpur and then just pick up where he left off. So that's what he's going to do. But anyway, I did a bit of a deep dive into his social media. It's quite enjoyable. I like to figure out all these things about who people are, especially when they're going on a big expedition like that. And I figured out a few things. He doesn't put a lot of, like, the things I like to know about. I like to know a lot about logistics, about practicalities. So when you're walking around the world, of course, you're moving very slowly. And in my mind, that raises a lot of problems. And the first issue that I think of is visas. I've done a little bit of bike touring in my life. And if I've ever contemplated a multi-country bike ride, the first thing I think about is, well, in that country, how long is the tourist visa? And does that give me enough time to ride my bike across the whole country? And much of the time, the answer is no. You don't even have enough time to ride a bike across the country within the confines of a 30-day or 60-day tourist visa. And in his case, he's going much slower because he's walking. So that's the sort of stuff I'm interested in. How did he get the visa? How long was the visa for? How expensive was it? And can he renew the visa? Can he extend the visa? These are all the sorts of questions I have. Morning again, how are you? Morning. And he doesn't tend to talk about stuff like that. And he also doesn't give a lot of personal information, so I have no idea what his travel history was. Like before he started walking around the world, where had he been? Had he been to Asia before? Had he been to Africa, South America? I have no idea. So I read through his entire Instagram history, and then you have to sort of read between the lines to try and figure out these sorts of details. So I did that, and he started his journey in Estonia. Another question I had instantly is like, okay, you started your walk around, you're from Australia, and you want to walk around the world, and the place you started was Estonia. And I have no idea why. Like, why would anybody start in Estonia? I mean, if you're gonna walk through Europe, and this is your big once-in-a-lifetime adventure, I don't know, it feels like you'd want to start at the very beginning. And I don't know, I'd start walking from Australia and then go to the next country from Australia and then go around the world back to Australia. Or if you wanted to start in Europe, I don't know, I'd start in the UK and then walk through France and Spain and go through Portugal and Italy, Germany, Greece, all these countries. But he sort of started in the middle of Europe in Estonia, sort of Eastern Europe, I guess. So that's where he began. And again, reading between the lines, it seems like he started off with a backpack, just like a normal person going around the world. He had a backpack, started walking, and I'm assuming he decided it was too difficult to carry that much weight on your back and walk all day, every day. So then he decided to get some kind of a wheeled contraption to carry his gear. And I don't know how much shopping around he did, what kind of items are available to do that, but he settled on basically a baby stroller. There are companies like Thule, Thule, and Thule makes very expensive travel gear or baby strollers. I know they make bicycle panniers, things like that. So he ended up picking up a baby stroller. I think it was called I forget the name of it now. I looked it up online. I don't think they sell it anymore, the one that he bought. But it's basically a three-wheel stroller, two big wheels at the back, a single wheel at the front, and it's shaped sort of like a pyramid or like a triangle, because it's designed for a child to sit inside it, and then the front of it comes down on an angle, almost like the windshield of a car, and the child can look out the front. So from my point of view, it's not really the best design for walking around the world. Just a weird shape in terms of putting all your luggage in there. It's not very efficient, but it does the job apparently. He's been using it for years and he hasn't moved on to anything else. I don't even know what else, if there is anything on the market like that. Whew. Be nice to get away from that road. Gets a bit overwhelming sometimes when you find yourself trying to talk and then you're in the middle of all that traffic. But I'm back in the quiet part of Port Dickson. Yeah, so I was reading through all his Instagram posts, and he's, as I said, he's not really into the practical details for storytelling, and he doesn't really even focus on himself. the whole first year or 2 years of his journey, there was like 0 pictures of him. He never took pictures of himself, never took selfies, didn't show where he was staying at night. He didn't take pictures of anything other than the landscape around him. And as he went through Eastern Europe, many countries there, it was kind of wide open, very empty landscapes, but he seems to be very interested in photography and ideas of philosophy and the meaning of life, sort of deep thoughts, rather than my perspective, which is generally much more local and focused. I'm not consumed by deep thoughts anymore. I'm more consumed with where can I get one Ton Mee this morning, things like that, and how much does the tourist visa cost, and how do I apply for it? These are the things I think about. I figure life can take care of itself. It doesn't need me to figure out the meaning of life. It's been doing fine without me till now. But yeah, so he doesn't post pictures of himself, so finding out details about his journey was kind of hard to do. But I made some notes, and I found it kind of interesting that he did break up his journey quite a bit. I think when you come across someone who is walking around the world, you have this impression of, wow, what an amazing physical challenge this is. And you ask him, how long have you been doing this? And it's like, oh, I've been walking for 5 years, went through all these countries, covered so many thousands of kilometers. How many kilometers per day do I walk? All these sorts of things. And it seems like a very impressive physical achievement, which it is. But then when you dig down into it, you do find that there are breaks built into it. So for example, he would walk in between large cities, starting off in one large city where he was staying in a hotel, and then he would walk for whatever number of days it would require to get to the next large city, and then in that city he would then stay in a hotel again. Then maybe stay there for a week, being a tourist, going out exploring, taking pictures, and then he would begin walking again for 5 days or something like that to get to the next big city, and then move into a hotel. And I think in between times, he was camping out a lot. So he had that tent and camping gear with him. Though, as I said, he rarely showed any evidence of that. And then he was walking all through Eastern Europe, and he got to Turkey, and then he took a 2-month break in Istanbul, I think. Either Istanbul or somewhere else. I think it might have been in Istanbul. So at that point, he rented an apartment for 2 months, paying, oh, I always walk the wrong direction when I get here for some reason. I have to go over there to get to the big sister.
Hello guys!
Hey, how are you?
I want to join the vlog.
All right, this is, these are the guys from
Madani.
the boys from Port Dickson.
Yeah.
Have a good day, guys.
Hey, ciao dulu.
Yeah. But yeah, big sister Kopitiam is over here, and I'm supposed to go this way. I always walk by it for some reason. But yeah, he got to Turkey, and then he took a break there for 2 months, and then continued walking. And then, of course, as happened to everybody, his journey was disrupted by the pandemic. And I was very interested how he handled that. And he wrote a little bit more about that in terms of how it affected him personally and his plans. And he made the decision, as the restrictions got more and more severe, it was pretty clear that he wouldn't be able to continue in the same way. And he decided to fly back to Australia. So he spent he just started his journey, maybe a year on the road, less than a year. But then he had to go back to Australia, and he stayed there for 2 years, 1 month. And then he went back to where his journey was broken by the pandemic, and then started again. And eventually, he flew from that part of the world to Asia, and he flew to India and walked all the way across India. He went all the way across India into Assam province, like the extreme northeastern corner of India, very untraveled part of India. And then he flew from there to Sumatra via Malaysia, I believe. Maybe not, I'm not sure. He started in Banda Aceh in the north of Sumatra, and then walked all the way through Sumatra. And I know that his visa expired at one point, and he actually took the ferry from Dumai to Malacca. And then he stayed in Malacca for a week, and then he got a new visa for Indonesia, restarted his tourist visa cycle, and then he went back to Indonesia and continued walking all the way to Jakarta. And then in Jakarta, he made his way to a ferry to Singapore, and then he started walking again from Singapore and then into Malaysia. And then, as I said, here in Malaysia, he hopped on a flight and went back to Australia. So anyway, I'm here at the Big Sista Kopitiam. So I'm gonna take a break from my storytelling and have some breakfast. I have my wonton mee, the mee over here, and the wontons in a broth this morning. And I got a iced coffee. And I got it from the same stall right here. The same people that were so kind to me last time, telling me all about the laksa. Gave me the whole history of laksa. So, time for breakfast. And I would normally use my JAWS grip to attach my camera to the table, but because the first part of it is snapped off now, it's broken, it isn't as long anymore, and it's not flexible, everything breaks. And I'm very careful with all my gear. I treat everything very gently, and I put everything in nice cases, and yeah, I have no idea why everything is so fragile, but I guess I own this stuff for a long time. This GoPro JAWS that I've been using forever, like, yeah, I've been using it for years. It's probably 5 years old, more, and in this heat and this humidity, the plastic just becomes brittle and everything just snaps off eventually. So I'm going to dive into my wonton mee. I don't know if I'll keep telling the story of the indefinite walk while I'm eating. Maybe I'll stop for now. Telling a story while eating starts to get a bit distracting. But yeah, so there's my wonton mee. And you get really nice sweet pickles with it, which I really love. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the dumplings are in with the noodles. Sometimes she puts them in a broth. Today the noodles are in a broth. Such a great breakfast. I love this. There are similar restaurants to this one in my neighborhood. I walked by one when I was coming here, and I hesitated for just a minute, thinking maybe I should pop in there. But I don't know. I was in the mood for coming back to this place, a place I'm familiar with. I wasn't in the mood for food adventures this morning. So I'm going to dive in, enjoy my breakfast. I think I have to pick up a couple of items, so I'm going to do a bit of shopping and then head back to my new home and see how my laptop is doing, chunking away, exporting the latest Vietnam video. So good too. Iced coffee, iced milk coffee. Good breakfast, all done. Heading out into downtown Port Dickson, do a little bit of shopping. Got a couple of doodads I want to buy to make my new room a bit more comfortable. There's no mirror in the bathroom at all, for example. I wouldn't mind getting a cheap mirror that I can hang or put on a shelf, something like that. So yeah, I was telling the story of Sebastian from Australia, the Indefinite Walk on Instagram and YouTube. Interesting thing is, as I said, he was more into photography than anything else. And his writing is very literary, almost poetic, rather than getting into the nitty-gritty details of life on the road. And I was wondering whether he tried to do any video, and he did. When he got to India, he switched. He didn't switch. He's been posting on Instagram almost every day, and he's been numbering them. So it's like day 1, day 2, day 3, like each day that is a walking day, for example. And he posts almost every day that he's walking. And then in India, he started shooting video. And they're very simple videos where he's just pushing his stroller. It's the kind of stroller that goes in front of him, like a shopping cart almost. So he's pushing his stroller, and then he has something, maybe a cell phone, maybe a GoPro. I'm not sure what he was using. But he was sort of holding it down here like a lot of people do, just sort of aiming straight up at the sky, and just chatting about little things. But I think he posted only 7 videos out of India, and then he stopped again. And he didn't say anything about it. He didn't talk about it, but my assumption is that it was just too much work. As I discovered when I was cycling in Sumatra a little bit, riding a bike all day and shooting video and editing video at the same time. You can do it, but it's hard. It's a tough thing to do. It takes a lot of time to work on videos, and if you're cycling all day, walking all day, sleeping in a tent at night as he was doing when he was walking, yeah, it's hard to do. So he didn't keep it up. He shot some video in India, and that's it. And I don't blame him for stopping, as I said, because I know how hard it is. And at the same time, he got very sick in India, as most people do. Most foreigners who go to India tend to get quite ill. And he fell ill on a number of occasions, to the point of being hospitalized with typhoid fever. And at one point, he even had an accident. Again, he doesn't actually tell what happens. Like in his Instagram post, he doesn't say what the accident was, but reading between the lines, it seems like his stroller was hit from behind by some sort of vehicle. So one wheel and the axle a wheel was smashed and the axle was broken, things like that. Or maybe it was just the axle. But anyway, there was some kind of accident. He doesn't say what it was. And he got it fixed locally. But somewhere in there, he decided to go back to Australia again. And he brought his stroller with him. And he was going to get more repairs done on the stroller when he was back in Australia. And then his quick trip to Australia turned out to be 9 months long, because while he was there, he was in a car accident with his parents. I assume they were driving. He was in the car, and they were in an accident of some kind. Again, he doesn't describe the accident, but there was an accident. And he hurt his shoulder, broke it, or he did some major damage to his shoulder. And in terms of recovering from that, it took 9 months. So he left India, probably intending to be back in Australia just for a month, and then returning to India, but he ended up staying in Australia for 9 months. So, and then he returned to India and kept walking. So that kind of gets to what I was talking about, that the journey was not really one long continuous walking every day for years and years and years. It was broken up by pretty healthy chunks of time, where he would rent a room in Turkey for 2 months, go back to Australia for 9 months, and then of course the pandemic for 2 years, 1 month. And I'm not sure what he was doing during those 2 years when he was in Australia either. I'm just down at the waterfront again, by the way. Thought since I was here, come take a look at the water. And there's some sort of official organization over here, I think. I see a lot of official boats docking here, but I don't know what they are. Some sort of Coast Guard type of organization, something related to the government, maritime authorities. I'm not really sure, but there is looks like a private secure dock there, and that orange boat goes back and forth from the island, I think. But I don't really know who they are or what they do. But here we are back at the waterfront. Just down there is Zeus Coffee with the blue umbrellas. And I'm going to Zeus Coffee tomorrow. Tomorrow being Thursday, it's Wednesday today here in Port Dickson. And another Malaysian YouTuber, Kology, the letter C and then with the letter K, Kology. I'm not quite sure what the name means, but it's like a play on psychology, but this is Kology, but with a K. He's a well-known YouTuber in Malaysia, a food vlogger, basically. And he reached out to me because he knew I was going to be in Port Dickson, and apparently he's coming to Port Dickson to profile this city, the food here in Port Dickson. He's going to be here for a week. And we arranged to meet up tomorrow at Zeus Coffee. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I can meet the famous Kology for coffee tomorrow morning. And since I'm doing that tomorrow, I'm not going to go to Zeus or Starbucks today. I'll save my fancy coffee experience for tomorrow when I meet up with Kology. And while I was reading through Sebastian's Instagram posts and putting his story together, I started thinking, as I often do, about how the type of transportation you use really affects the experience you have when you're traveling, when you're overseas. And this is something I've thought about for a long time, because it's essentially what made me go on some cycling trips in the past. Because I noticed that when you're traveling with a backpack and just basically following the backpacker trail, you end up going to the same places as everybody else. You're in a town, in a hotel, and then you've got to find transportation to take you to the bus station or the train station. And then you take a bus, and the bus takes you to the next big city. And at the bus station, you've got to find transportation to get to your hotel. So your life becomes an endless search for transportation. And just by the way things work, you end up going from big city to big city. And in a way, you're kind of isolated, even though you're surrounded by people, because there's no way for people to approach you easily. But when I started doing a bit of bike touring, everything changed. For one thing, you're going to just normal towns. You're not going from big tourist attraction to big tourist attraction. You end up cycling out of the big city and you ride 100 kilometers and then you spend the night wherever you are. And it's usually some small village, some small town that has nothing of major tourist interest in it, but it is a small town in that country, and you end up having a wonderful time. And you ride 100 kilometers the next day and you spend the night in another small town, small village in that country. And because you're riding a bicycle, you're moving more slowly and people will come up and talk to you. So you're riding your bike, you stop at a red light or you stop at an intersection, you stop to take a picture, whatever it is, people see you, they see your bicycle, and they use the bicycle as an icebreaker, basically. So total strangers would come up to me all the time and say, "Oh, hey, where are you from? What's your name? How many miles a day do you ride your bicycle?" They ask you all kinds of questions about your journey. They ask you about the bicycle. It's almost, I've talked about this before, it's like if you go for a walk by yourself, maybe nobody will talk to you. But if you go for a walk with a puppy, then suddenly everybody wants to talk to you, and they want to say hi, they want to pet the puppy. And they say, "Oh, cute dog, is it okay if I pet your dog?" And you end up meeting all these people because the puppy serves as an icebreaker. And when you're bike touring, your bicycle is like an icebreaker. And because you're moving more slowly and you're isolated, you have more natural opportunities to meet people. And now you can take it one step further. You have somebody like Sebastian who is walking. So he is the slowest thing in the world. So that makes him such an easy target. Like everybody's going faster than he is, whether they're riding a bike, motorcycle, scooter, in a car. And anybody even walking is walking faster than he is, because he's walking and pushing a heavy stroller with all his luggage in it, right? So what ends up happening is everybody talks to him, and even I talk to him, because I saw him walking at the side of the highway. I'm in a car, we pull over to the side of the highway, I jump out of the car, I talk with him. So that's one of the advantages of walking and going more slowly. You're going through all these small villages where tourists, foreign visitors usually never go to. And at the same time, all the people in those villages have a way to talk to him. So again, reading between the lines, as he went through India, as he went through Eastern Europe, lots of people invited him into their homes. They would see him. People want to help him out. They understand he's on this big journey around the world, and they say, oh, is there anything I can do for you? Come back to my house. Here's a cold drink. Here's some food. Oh, do you want to put your tent in the garage or sleep inside the house? And he would end up having all these really interesting experiences meeting the local people all around the world. So it's sort of a question of pros and cons. So for example, I noticed that when he was in Sumatra, he started in Banda Aceh, and then he walked down the east coast of Sumatra to the city of Medan. And I know that area quite well. I rode my bicycle that same route, and I know from experience it's probably the least beautiful part of Sumatra. It's the flat part of Sumatra, heavily populated, highways, heavy traffic everywhere you go. On my bicycle, it was kind of overwhelming how busy it was. So what he should have done, in my opinion, if he's walking through Sumatra, instead of walking down the east coast, he should have walked down the west coast, because the west coast is much more beautiful, much more scenic. It's mountainous. The road follows the coast, so day after day you're walking right beside the ocean, beautiful beaches, fishing villages. It's just stunning. It's gorgeous on the west coast. But the east coast is heavily populated, and pretty much it consists of nothing but traffic, highways and traffic. So, but he ended up walking down the east coast. Because he's walking, he's moving slower, which means he has less time. So he has to take the most direct route. Me being on a bicycle, moving a bit faster, I was able to take the long route along the west coast. And even when he went past Medan, he was so close to Lake Toba. And Lake Toba is one of the most beautiful places in the world. If you have a chance to go to Lake Toba, you should take advantage of it. But he walked right by it and never went there because he was walking, and to walk up to Lake Toba would be a major detour for him, would require quite a large amount of time. So did he miss out? Like, was his experience of Sumatra not as good as it could have been because he didn't see the beautiful areas? He didn't go down the west coast. He didn't go to Lake Toba. He didn't go to Bukit Tinggi. He didn't go to Padang. He essentially walked along the most unattractive part of the whole island. But at the same time, as I said, from what I could tell, he had an amazing experience simply because he was walking. And because he was walking, he met so many people. And the average, like, let's say you're a typical backpacker traveling by bus, and you plan an itinerary, and your itinerary takes you to Lake Toba, Bukit Tinggi, Padang, the offshore islands, the beautiful beaches. You go to all these places, so you've seen the best that Sumatra has to offer, but at the same time, you didn't really meet very many of the local people because of the nature of the style that you were traveling. And someone like Sebastian, because he's walking, he doesn't have the time or the ability to go to all the major attractions But despite that, he still had a really interesting experience, because by walking, it's more personal, more adventurous, and he meets a lot more people, and he probably learned a lot more about life on Sumatra than a typical backpacker would. So anyway, those are my thoughts about Sebastian and his project, the Indefinite walk. Looking forward, if he happens to come back and I'm still in Malaysia, I'll try to keep in touch with him. It'd be nice to meet up with him, but we'll see whether that comes together or not. I'm walking back to my new home, and I never saw this before. This is the bus station. I've been to this bus station, but I never saw this map before. Thought I'd come take a look. Yeah, tourism map. Shows where we are. Port Dickson, yeah, right here. All the beaches along here. Cape Rochado with the lighthouse over there. As I mentioned, I first saw the Indefinite walk Sebastian dude. I saw him when I was driving into Kuala Lumpur with KY before the Independence Day weekend. And when we got to Kuala Lumpur, the very first thing I did with KY is we drove in his car to Berjaya Times Square, because that's where Altec Camera is located. So we went directly there to pick up my GoPro Hero 12. That was the main thing I wanted to do on this trip back to KL. So we got there, and I've told the story already where the LCD screen was failing when I was in Vietnam. It would actually cut out and would be gone for days at a time. So I brought it in to have it serviced or replaced under warranty. But then the GoPro distributor couldn't duplicate the problem. They couldn't replicate it. So they basically just sent the camera back and said, there's nothing wrong with this camera. So I'm waiting for my GoPro LCD screen to die again on me when it heats up. We'll see. Oh yeah, I'm in the parking lot where they have all the chendol and rojak stalls, and they're just getting set up here. It's just, yeah, like 10 o'clock in the morning. There's a whole bunch of them get lined up here during the day. It's a nice meal. Rojak and chendol, put them together. I didn't realize that those two dishes commonly came as a pair, but apparently it does. People seem to have them together all the time. I was going to do some shopping, but I guess I was too early. Everything downtown is still closed, so I didn't do any of the shopping that I had planned for. So yeah, there's a bit of a barrier here. It's quite wet in this ditch. There's only a couple of places where you can safely get across it. I think I have to walk down there to find a trail. Just have to find the places where the local people walk, and they've created a trail right here. It's a good spot to get across the ditch. Yeah, so the guy at Altec Camera explained the whole situation to me, and he said that if the LCD screen fails again, for some reason, he said it would be better if I go directly to the distributor. So rather than bringing it to Altec, he said, he gave me the receipt, the report from the distributor, and he had the address on it, and he said next time if there is any trouble, it would be better if you go directly to them. So I guess that's what I'll do next time if there is a problem. And then a couple of days later, I went to go pick up my Hero 9, and that was at the end of a long drama, of course. And yeah, SKL camera repair. I guess they do the work well. Like if you have a broken GoPro, there's not many places you can go. And SKL, the guy there, Brandon, he knows how to fix things. So if you have a camera and you need it repaired, you can go there and he'll get it done for you. But do not expect any communication. Don't expect any customer service at all. You can just drop off your camera and then see what happens next. Oh. On my way back to my home, I just passed by a barber shop, so I thought he didn't seem very busy, so I thought I'd jump in and see what he can do with my mop of hair. Just gonna get a quick haircut. Yeah, recording.
Hi.
So my barber, he tells me he's from Haryana, India.
Yeah.
And then he did a very nice job on my hair here. I didn't take any video of the haircut. Now that I wish I had, because it was something quite special. He did a nice job. So thank you very much.
Thank you, boss.
Okay.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, one thing with getting a haircut with barbers, there are some barbers who have a very light touch. And for whatever reason, I don't actually like that. It tickles. Like somehow they don't really get in there with their fingers and their clippers, and you just have this light feeling over your head, and it kind of tickles. I like a barber that uses a bit of force. So like this guy really got in there, and he's like, it's almost like a nice scalp scratching, which I really like. And he has the habit of maybe their hair stylist in general, or his own personal technique, I don't know, where at the end of the haircut, there is a little bit of an actual scalp massage. And he broke out some cream and put the cream on the back of my neck to start, and it was like ice cold. Had a really cool feeling, this ice cold feeling. And, and then he was giving me this head and neck massage. And then I had my eyes closed at the time, so I didn't see what he was doing exactly. But he had some sort of a special technique where he put two hands together, and then he was slapping my head all around, but with his hands kind of making a slapping sound. All kinds of special techniques. And then I guess he was going to do a little bit of a chiropractic thing. But then he stopped to ask me if that was okay. He had his hand underneath my chin and was pulling my head to the side, but then he said something, and I opened my eyes, and he was clearly indicating, okay, I'm going to snap your neck. Is it okay if I do that? And then I said, no, I don't think that's a wise idea. Like I don't really want my spinal cord snapped. I know people do this, like they go to chiropractors to have this done, but yeah, it doesn't seem like a wise idea to mess around with your spine that way. It's probably harmless, but I said, no, I don't think I want that. But then he actually did do it with my ears, which is kind of a funny thing. He really got in there with my ears, and then he did almost a chiropractic adjustment to each ear, and I could actually hear it snap. I guess it's something in the cartilage. Whether it's something you want done to your ear, I don't know, but there was actually a fairly loud snapping sound, something he did. And I assume there's no bones in your ears, but there is cartilage. And somehow, yeah, it was quite a dramatic thing, this snap. And I could feel some kind of heat in my ear, like there was blood flowing where there wasn't blood flowing before. Again, I can't tell you whether it was a good thing to do to my ears or not, but I sure felt something. And so far, I don't think there's been any permanent damage. But yeah, it was an experience. That was quite a haircut. Quite enjoyed that. I would go back there for sure. As I said, he's from India, and I think it's part of a chain. I've seen that same symbol in a lot of different barbershops, and they seem to import or bring in workers from Bangladesh and from India. So quite often, the barbers in those shops are from India and Bangladesh. I don't think I finished telling the story of picking up my Hero 9. I interrupted it to go get a haircut, and I think I was just saying that this guy, SKL, can fix your GoPro, no problems there, and he fixed mine as far as I can tell. And fixing mine, it wasn't cheap. Turns out when he investigated why it wouldn't connect with a microphone, you know, the USB-C port basically wasn't connecting to anything on the GoPro. So he opened it up and he did all his testing, and he said that there was a processor or something on the main board of the GoPro that was broken and needed to be replaced. So because of that, the repair was a bit more expensive than I'd anticipated. It cost 200 ringgit. It's now back in perfect working order, which is a good thing. But to be honest, when I brought it in there, the only problem was whatever I plugged into the USB-C port didn't make a connection. And I was thinking, well, they have special tools to, might be a loose wire, resolder it, or you get a blast of air and clean out dust, or you just scrape the contact points. They may have been corroded or something, but I thought it would be a very simple, easy job and would cost, hello, a few ringgit at most. I wasn't expecting a 200 ringgit bill for the repair. But by that point, when he told me it was going to be 200 ringgit, he told me that before he did it. And by that point I saw, he sent me a little video clip, and he had dismantled the entire GoPro and he had the parts all in front of him. So by that point, it was sort of like, well, at that point, I don't want to say, no, don't repair it. The thing was in pieces. He had the parts. He was ready to go. So I said, okay, yeah, just do it. And yeah, 200 ringgit. But this guy who does the repairs, he isn't at that location. He uses a smartphone shop as a place where customers can drop off their cameras, but he doesn't do the work there. He does the work somewhere else. So he wasn't there, and it's not the kind of place that gives you any sort of paperwork. So I have nothing. I have no receipt. I have no work order. I have no, I don't have an itemized list of exactly what parts were replaced, how much the labor was, things like that. I wanted to ask him, it's okay, what did you do exactly? Like, can you explain to me what part was broken? But I didn't have a chance to ask him because, yeah, he's not there. All I could do was go into the smartphone shop. They gave me the GoPro. I plugged in all of my gear. I have two media mods. I plugged in both of them. They both worked. I also have a GoPro mic adapter. I plugged that in with various microphones. And no matter what I did, it worked perfectly with all of my gear. So the repair was good. So after thorough testing, I handed over 200 ringgit and then I walked out the door. It was sort of like, here's 200 ringgit. You walk out with your camera, but there's no receipt, there's no invoice, no work order, no information, nothing like that. And I guess that's a good thing and a bad thing. Sometimes if a company is super formal, like Olympus, that's bad. But maybe being super informal is not good either. You kind of want the happy sweet spot, right? But anyway, I have my GoPro Hero 9 back and my Hero 12, so I'm good to go as far as GoPros are concerned. Yeah, so this is how you get to my new house. There's a school over here. There's the big Buddhist center, the temple or community center. I'm not quite sure what you call that. And the road to my house is just before this temple complex. You just turn left, and there's my new home. Lunchtime for the students, everybody over there. Hello. I often see them up in the classroom windows when I walk by. And as for the rest of my time in KL, I think I showed much of it in video form, going to YL camera to see if I can get my Panasonic lens cleaned. Turns out that's kind of a dead end. So I have to make a decision about whether I want to keep my Olympus camera so I can keep using this lens, or just sell the lens and tell people, you get it at a really good price because it has a little bit of fungus on the inside, or just keep it. I haven't decided yet. And I met up with my friend Daryl from the Wander Eats YouTube channel a couple of times. He had a video project of his own. He was working on a new shopping mall opened up in Kuala Lumpur called the Elmina Lakeside Mall. Quite a distance outside of KL, maybe 25 kilometers. It was a little bit out there, maybe not that far, but it was out there on the outskirts. And we went out there one day He shot his video showcasing this new mall, and we went out for a couple of good meals from time to time. Some char kway teow. A YouTube subscriber of mine and of Daryl's contacted me, James from Australia. Shout out to James. He was actually in KL. Trying to think, oh, I think I go this way. Yeah, this way. Oh, these corners aren't completely familiar to me yet. Yeah, I think I go this way. Yeah, James from Australia. He was in Kuala. I met him in Mae Sot ages ago when I was in Thailand during the pandemic era. And he dropped by Mae Sot and we spent a few days together. He was traveling around Thailand on a motorcycle, and he and I rode around the Mae Sot area on a couple of day trips. So I got to know James relatively well. And then when he was in KL, Daryl, being the generous soul that he is, he treated us both to dinner, James and myself, while we were in KL. So James remembered that, and since I was back in KL, James contacted me and sent me some money through the Planet Doug system and said, Doug, thank Daryl for me for that meal, and use this money to go out. So if the two of you go out for a meal together, it's on me, it's my treat. So James did that, and so Daryl and I have gone out three or four times in KL having some really nice food, and James treated us to those meals, which is very nice of him. So yeah, so that's kind of the end of my stories. I met up with KY one night when I was in Kuala Lumpur. We were in the middle of figuring out, like KY had helped me find these places to live here in Port Dickson, and I needed to meet up with him just to discuss some of the details about this new place that I'm moving into. I'm standing right in front of it right now. So I met up with KY one night, and I had nasi goreng mira. I don't think I'd ever had it before. Fried rice, nasi goreng, but it had a kind of thinly sliced, bright red meat, very spicy. I'm not sure if it's a Thai dish or Malaysian dish. It might have been Thai, but that was very, very good as well. So yeah, I had a lot of good meals when I was in KL. Daryl and I went to a coffee shop called Pulp, very fancy sort of place. I had a huge breakfast plate there, and we went to like a warehouse cafe, an old warehouse that had been converted into a very modern, hip kind of coffee shop called Bean Brothers, I think. I think in my Relive video I called it Coffee Bean or something like that, but I think it was called Bean Brothers. Several floors, very industrial, high ceilings, exposed steelwork with a giant hole in the middle of the ceiling because it was like an industrial factory of some kind. You can see from the bottom floor up through the other floors and down. Very cool place, the Bean Brothers. And yeah, so I had a really good time in KL. I didn't do any of the Independence Day celebrations. I just did my own thing. And when I wasn't meeting up with people, wasn't running errands, I was just editing video the entire time. So here I am back in Port Dickson, and I'll give you another look, my new home. So that's my new home right there, and this yard is part of this place as well, backyard. Well, that is it. Just as I was coming in, my landlady and my landlord, they were outside working on their car, cleaning it, had a nice chat with them. And they were asking me where I was from and where I've been in Malaysia and what I think of Malaysian food and the Malaysian climate. So I had to tell them, yeah, it's hot for me. It's too hot being a Canadian, stuff like that. So we had a very nice chat. Really nice people here. I think I'm going to be very comfortable in this place. And checking up on my laptop, see how this export job is working. Yeah, we've still got 4 hours to go. We're at 47% completed. So, yeah. So I have 4 hours to wait before I can get back on my laptop. Time for a cup of coffee. All right, that's it. Shutting down. I guess that is the story of my journey from KL back to Port Dickson and moving into my new home. I don't want to lift my camera too high in the air because there's a giant fan up there. Can't forget about that. Yeah, but yeah, that fan makes all the difference. Like right now, I didn't even feel like I had to turn on the air conditioner. Just having that fan on, blowing down on me is nice and cool. So there's my new haircut. All right, pretty successful morning. And that's it, shutting down. And I'll see you in the next video.